course. I had a statistician tell me this morning that when it comes to GIR bias, greens in regulation bias on the PGA Tour, it ranks first. And so you start looking at the guys who hit a lot of greens in regulation and have decent proximity. I would say Russell Henley is one of those guys to keep an eye on. He's played well so far this season. He already has a win under his belt. So, yeah, I think he's a pretty good one.
And welcome to the Sportsnaut interview, everyone. I am your host, Evan Grote, and it is Masters Week. The first major of the golf season is upon us. And joining us here today to break it all down is Rex Hoggard, who is the senior writer for NBC Golf Channel. And Rex, it is a exciting week for golf fans. I know it's a busy week for you, so we appreciate you making a few minutes for us today.
Yeah, of course. It's a week unlike any other. Like this one you look forward to all year long. You can't wait to get here, and it never seems to disappoint. We always end up with a great winner. And it's the one place that anyone you talk to will tell you it never disappoints.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the tournament itself, I do want to get a bit of an update from you on the deal between the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour. I was listening to Scottie Scheffler a couple of weeks ago at his pre-Masters press conference, and he seemed a little bit frustrated that there hadn't been a little bit more progress made yet between the two sides. What can you tell us about what can you tell us the latest about a possible deal here between the two tours?
I think Brooks isn't the only one that's disappointed that there hasn't been any progress. My guess is most people on both sides are pretty disappointed there hasn't been any progress. And I think when you start breaking down why, you get to the heart of some of these issues, which I'm not necessarily sure how you incorporate team golf into the current PGA Tour professional golf ecosystem. I think that's going to be part of it. I think the other half of it is if the public investment fund is going to come in as an investor, is everyone on the PGA Tour side, including SSG, Strategic Sports Group, going to be okay with a $1.5 billion investment, another $1.5 billion investment? I think how do you allow the players who joined LIV Golf, some of them were suspended by the PGA Tour for breaking rules with their PGA Tour's rules. How do you integrate them back into the ecosystem? I mean, there's about a million questions, and we all know how complicated it is. But I think the best example of exactly how difficult this was going to be came just last month at the White House meeting that included the commissioner of the PGA Tour, the governor of the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, Tiger Woods was there, and of course the president of the United States. And by all accounts, it was almost a 4-hour meeting, and they didn't get anything accomplished. So you get an idea of exactly how complicated and difficult this is going to be. And I don't think it's going to get any easier.
Yeah, a lot of players for this. It's not an easy deal, that's for sure. But we'll hope soon that something gets done there. Let's talk about golf now. Let's talk about the Masters this week. Scottie Scheffler, the world #1 player, seeking his third green jacket in 4 years. He's also seeking back-to-back Masters championships here. Enters the week without a win this year, very unlike last year when he was red hot. Is there any reason to believe that despite the slow start to the year for him, that he will not be at his best this week?
No, because I think clearly the hand injury that he suffered during the offseason, that set him back. And he's a creature of habit. He loves to do things in a very specific way. You see it when he's at a tournament, certainly when you talk to his swing coach, Randy Smith, when they're at home, the things they work on between tournaments and the offseason. He wants things to go a very specific way. And because of that injury, they couldn't. He was behind in his prep work for the season. I will point out that even though he has not won before the Masters, he still has played really well. I think of his 6 starts, he only has 1 outside of the top 10. So if we could all be so lucky, if that's going to be rock bottom for us, I think he's going to be just fine. And we know his record around this golf course. And I think what we've seen out of him the last few weeks is more on par with what we've come to expect when he's playing his best golf. His ball striking is very good. Just go back to a few weeks ago in Houston. I think his putter seemed to make a turn. So I am going to be shocked. I think right now, Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are 1A, 1B when it comes to the favorites. I'd be stunned if one of those two isn't in contention.
Yeah, well, you brought up Rory. That's where I want to go next. It seems like every time a major tournament rolls around in the last, 10 years, everyone's asking the same question. When will Rory win another major tournament? And so the question is being asked again. You know, he is seeking the career Grand Slam. This is his 11th attempt at the career Grand Slam. Unlike Scottie, he enters the week playing a little bit better. He's won twice on tour this year. So when you look around the tour and you see the way some of the other guys are playing, Rory playing really well right now, do you feel this is as good of a chance that he has to win the Masters that we've seen in recent years?
Absolutely. And if you took the emotion out of it, and you touched on how emotional this is going to be for a lot of reasons, hasn't won a major in a decade, more or less, has trying to win the career Grand Slam, to do it here, of all places, a place that has been good to him and been really good to him and been really bad to him. It's going to be filled with emotion. It's going to be supercharged. So his game itself, if you look at his results, if you look at his statistics, he seems to be on par to be not just the favorite, but I would make him the overwhelming favorite if you took all of those emotions out of it. But you can't do that, because we're going to end up on Sunday. And if he does find himself, if he's lucky enough to be in contention, all of those old memories are going to come pouring back. I will say, having won twice and done it in two very drastically different ways at Pebble Beach, it was more of what we've come to expect. Kind of overpowered that golf course with his driver, as opposed to when he won the Players Championship, the flagship event. He didn't have his best stuff off the tee, and he found a way to win. I think both of those were impressive because of the extremes. They were at both ends of the spectrum. And then you look at how he played coming in here 2 weeks ago at Houston. He did everything he needed to do well. He was top 10 in strokes gained tee to green. He was top 10 in driving distance. Those are going to be his hallmarks. If he's going to get it done this week, though, he's going to have to get off to a fast start. If not, those emotions are going to come flooding back.
Yeah. So you mentioned Augusta being full of ups and downs for Rory. And I was looking at his finishes in the last, I believe it was 11 years at the Masters. And there's a few top 5 finishes in there, but there's also where he missed the cut. He missed the cut in 2021. He missed the cut in 2023. So what is it? Why is it that there's so much inconsistency for Rory at the Masters? Is it more mental? You mentioned the emotion, or is it more physical?
I think it's more mental than anything, because if you look at, it's fun to go back and to track that progress over the last 10 years, let's say, and how he's tried to prepare the best way he possibly can for Augusta. Some weeks, some years he's played the week before, some weeks he's played 2 weeks before, some weeks he's taken some time off, some years he's played a lot in the spring, trying to play his way into shape. He's tried pretty much every different combination to get to here, and the results are still spotty. And I think the easiest answer, well, twofold. One, yes, it's all about mental. It's all about the emotion that he faces at this golf course. He knows what this would mean. If this puts him in, I would argue, the most elite club in all of golf, to win the career Grand Slam, and to do it here, is style points as well. And the other half of it is, I think there's also something to be said for where he is at this stage in his career. He knows that even though he still has plenty of opportunities to play the Masters, you are on the other side of it. It's not as though he's still in his 20s and figures, all right, I'll get it done someday. At this point in his career, he has to start considering that the clock is ticking.
You know, I was just thinking about this. I was watching the Golf Channel just a few moments ago before we started recording this interview. How much of an advantage do you give past winners? I was listening to Adam Scott talk on the Golf Channel. You know, you have these guys, you mentioned Scheffler and Rory as your 1 and 1A as your favorites, but there's a lot of other guys competing here that are past champions. How much of an advantage do you think it is to have that under your belt, knowing that you can get it done at Augusta versus a guy who just hasn't had that feeling yet before?
Oh, there's something to be said for institutional knowledge, and we see it more years than not. Actually, Bernard Langer is in the media center right now talking with the media, and he would be a guy that would be a perfect example. I mean, here's someone that should be well past his prime at Augusta National, and it wasn't that long ago when he found himself somewhere close to the top of the leaderboard, at least through 1 or 2 rounds. Woods is probably the best example of that. You think that maybe he doesn't have the physical ability to do things he did early in his career when he had so much success here, but he still has all of that bent up knowledge, all of that collected knowledge to fall back on. They know where to miss. They know which holes to be aggressive on. They know where to lay back and be conservative. It means everything on this golf course.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes the Masters so unique, is that it's played at the same course every year, unlike the other majors in golf. Who enters the week playing really well that you think could make some noise this week?
I mean, we touched on the obvious ones. I think Rory and Scottie will be interesting. You kind of go down the list. I think Russell Henley is really interesting to me because we talk about this all the time. It's a second shot golf course. I had a statistician tell me this morning that when it comes to GIR bias, greens and regulation bias on the PGA Tour, it ranks first. And so you start looking at the guys who hit a lot of greens in regulation and have decent proximity. I would say Russell Henley is one of those guys to keep an eye on. He's played well so far this season. He already has a win under his belt. So yeah, I think he's pretty good one.
How about the guys over on the LIV Tour? You know, we don't see them much anymore. We don't hear about them as much. But how do you feel about the chances for a guy like Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, some of those guys on the LIV Tour and their chances at the Masters this week?
Yeah, we did a top 10 list of guys to watch this week, and it was kind of a collection of both. And I think I had 4 LIV players on there because my argument has always been if you were a world-class player who was able to contend in the majors and at the Masters before you left to go to LIV, you're probably still in that category. So I would probably start with Jon Rahm and go to Bryson simply based on recent form. John's played really well this season on LIV Golf, even though he didn't have his best season last year in the majors. I wouldn't expect that to continue. Then I think Brooks has to be right there behind him. And I really like Joaquin Niemann. So there's a bunch of different guys I think he would add to the mix when you're starting to look at players who could do it here. We just had a long conversation about institutional knowledge. I wouldn't discount Sergio Garcia. I had a colleague that made the argument that Phil Mickelson could be a good dark horse. So I think there's plenty of players that come from that tour that shouldn't be surprised if they're near the top of the leaderboard come the weekend.
Yeah, and then finally, you know, I know there was some weather out there today, but what does the forecast look like for the remainder of the week? And then also about the course itself. From what I read, there's been no course changes this year, but there was some damage that was done back when they had the hurricane. So what can you tell us about the weather forecast for the week and as far as how's the course looking?
Yeah, they got a bunch of rain today. It was a little over 2 inches, I think is what was in the forecast, and it actually just stopped raining. So the course was pretty fiery. I talked to a player who played yesterday afternoon on the second nine, and he was saying how firm the greens were. I think those are going to get quieted down a little bit, but then I'm pretty sure that no golf course changes more from Monday to Thursday than Augusta National, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be firm and fast again. The forecast is really good the rest of the week. I think there's a slight chance, maybe 20-25% on Friday, but otherwise it's going to be cool conditions. You're not going to have crazy winds. The one thing that you pointed out is there's always these subtle changes to the golf course. Probably the one to watch this year, and this has more to do, as you pointed out, the damage from Hurricane Helene late last year. There was some tree damage to the 16th green, and they pretty much had to rebuild that green. And I had one player tell me that that's probably the most firm green on the golf course. So it'll be interesting to watch that one.
And so if you were a betting man, you mentioned Scheffler and Rory as your favorites. Your prediction, who's going to win?
I'm going to go with Rory. And again, I'm trying to take the emotion out of it and do this with my head instead of my heart. I know that's kind of hard to do when it comes to Rory at this place, but for all the reasons I pointed out, he's playing his best golf, arguably, coming into this event. I think he probably has the best mental outlook when it comes to this, just trying to stay refreshed. I'll go back to the Players' Championship and going into that Monday playoff. He had a very clear vision of what he wanted to execute on that Monday morning, and he did it. And it led to a title. And if he comes in with a similar clarity of thought, I think he can do the same thing this week.
Absolutely. Rex Hoggard, everybody, senior writer for the Golf Channel, with a prediction of Rory McIlroy. We'll have to see how it all turns out. Rex, thank you so much for the time and enjoy the tournament.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on.